Good afternoon, everyone. How are we? How's lockdown treating you? I've just had a cabbage cream egg, so Easter's still good. So I've enjoyed that, and I'm now about to have a conversation with a guy that is going to be really enlightening and hopefully exciting for you guys to listen to. So all of you will know I currently have a conversation called Sales Conversations with Sales Experts, where I sit in the car and I travel around and a sales expert and answer some questions around sales and everything to do with selling and how they got into sales and how they've been successful in that area. But obviously, we're in lockdown. We can't do that right now, rightly so, staying safe, staying at home. So what I thought I'd do is I'd bring the conversation inside and we'll do a conversation with people over the phone or using Zoom. So we've got a guy called Simon Hares who is going to be doing the interview with me today. Simon is a brilliant sales trainer. Someone's been in, runs a company, a sales training company, which is helping lots and lots of people learn how to sell effectively. And it's a real honour for me to get Simon on the Zoom to share some of his sales thoughts, some of his sales ideas, his expertise with everyone, and talk about how he believes sales should be done in the right way and give some tips and ideas on what you can do to become better at selling as well. So haven't got the car today. My car is outside thinking what's going on. I'm normally in it, but I'm going to do the session today in the in my office and have a great conversation with Simon Hares and talk to him about everything sales related. So sales conversations with sales experts inside the house this time, to give some insights into how you can get better sales results and ensure you're hitting the numbers that you want to. So have a look at the video. Hope you enjoy watching it and you enjoy what we're going to cover in the video. I think it's going to be intriguing to see what Simon has to say, learn from him and his expertise, and really help us be in a position where we can get better sales results. Let's have a look at the video.
So it's great to do another sales conversations with sales experts. Normally I'm in the car, as I mentioned, but this week, because we're in isolation, we stay at home, we're protecting the NHS and making sure everyone stays safe. I'm really lucky that I've got a lovely man who's a sales expert on the end of the line that's going to talk to us and share some sales wisdom. I've got Simon Hares with us. So Simon, good afternoon. How are you?
Hey, how you doing? Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, no worries at all. So, how is isolation? You finding it? Are you enjoying it, or are you finding it stressful? How are you finding it?
Well, the training world has pretty much dropped off a cliff when it comes to face-to-face stuff. So we're trying to adapt and do as much as we can in that digital space where we can. I also think that a lot of people are preparing now for when they can eventually get back. So we're starting to think about planning stuff in for next year, which I know sounds a long way away, but at the end of the day, I like it when people plan. The isolation side from here, it's as people watching this can see the blobs on the wall behind me, there is a bit of decorating going on, so that's fine. There's quite a lot of baking going on and there's a lot of eating going on.
So before we get into the sales stuff, let's firstly talk about the decorating. You're very brave. As I said, I mentioned, my wife is probably going to watch this, and she's just sort of said to me downstairs, because we were just going away on holiday, can we redecorate the front room? I said, you can, but I'm not doing it. That's the first thing. Secondly, baking. Come on, what's the insights on this then? What have you been baking?
Well, it's a lot of cake. I trained as a chef many years ago.
Okay.
And when the whole cupcake revolution came in, I kind of capitalized on that and sold a bit with that. So it's just cake, and who doesn't love cake?
Do you know, it's so right. I was at one of my clients a couple of months ago, and there's a new marketing assistant there. If Charlie's watching, hi Charlie. And I said to her, I looked at what she's having, and I said, oh, it's not very healthy. And she looked at me and said, no, but I just prefer cake than fruit.
Yes.
I was like, yeah, I get you. So is there a cake speciality that you've got that's your, a thing that you make that wows everyone?
It really wows my waistline. So
you're right. You're slim. I'm the one with the one having to lose weight, but there we go.
Listen, you can't see anything from here down, so it's fine. I tend to go out about 6 meters either side.
I love it. But
just anything that's American cake, I just love. So
good stuff. Well, I'm a Welshman by heart, and my mother-in-law makes an amazing Barra Breath, which is this sort of like
my favourite Welsh cake. Absolutely favorite Welsh cake. We spend a lot of time in Pembrokeshire, and they do these Christmas ones, which are really Christmas spiced as well. So
I know.
Just get that in my mouth. It's all good.
Exactly. That's not good for us really when we're talking about these things. But look, so look, what I do with sales conversations with sales experts is just a great chance to interview someone that's been in sales for a long period of time, especially I know with your trading background as well, and just talk about sales in general and the things that you see and the general things there. But just for those that sort of don't know about you, talk to me a bit about you and your background and what you do now. 'Cause I know you've got a business, Serial 7, which is your training business, but you've got other, things that you've been doing. So talk about just a couple of minutes about your background in sales and how you got into sales in the first place.
Well, the business that I currently run is Serial Trainer 7, and it is a business which is based on two key pillars of skills development. The biggest is sales, the other is management. And then, of course, you've got all of the areas which cross in between them, if you will. So you've got presentation skills, proposal writing, all of those things. So we do a lot of that, and we have academies as well, which we run, which are long-term sessions that we put together. So we're really embedded within the business, and it's been going now for about 6 years. So it's done quite well. We've been very, very lucky. Of course, with everything that's gone on with COVID, it has slid off a cliff, without a doubt. And that's fine. We have to understand. So what we do at the moment is have a strategy where we give back a lot more than we will get back in return. So we're giving a lot of content to people. We're putting a lot of video content up and helping people get through this to help keep their businesses going and keep their sales skills alive. Prior to all of that, I worked in media for a long time. I had 16 years there. And I've done quite a lot of sales around within retail, within the luxury sector, within catering. But I'm often asked, like, how did you get into sales? And it wasn't a case of getting into it. It just kind of happened because every role that we have, everything we do really is selling everything. I mean, what we're doing with this video right now in a funny kind of way is selling you, selling me, selling concepts, selling ideas. When people put a LinkedIn profile together, they're selling themselves. You go to a job interview, you're selling. So everything is sales. But I started off, I suppose, when I was about 10 years old, and at school, we used to do this thing every year called a Super Family Fun Day, which when I look back on it now, it fills me with complete horror of the things that you would get up to there, and that people would sell this stuff. And we were all given a flyer, and you had to take this flyer home, and the teachers would say, what we want to do is give these to as many people as you can of your friends and family, and 50 pence each is what you're going to get back. And you think, oh, 50 pence. And now you look back and think, that's a lot of money. But they gave us like 5. And it was like, I gave 5 away in no time. And I just kept going back for more and more and more. And there was another kid in the class who obviously had a bit of a competitive streak as well. And we kind of competed with each other to see who could do the most. So we were just banging on everyone's doors all around. Everyone going, would you like to come to our Super Family Fun Day on the 15th of March? And we're going to be doing this, and it's 50 pence. And of course, you're selling all this stuff, then you don't realize what you're doing, and you get really competitive. You got a target. That was all it. I mean, I didn't win. He beat me by about 25, and he's now buried in the ground somewhere. No one knows anything. But, you start early.
But it's funny you mentioned about that, and that sort of instinct to not to sell, but just to sort of do things like that, because it feels natural, doesn't it? I don't know if I shared a story. I don't know if you saw a couple of weeks ago of the young lad in Leeds that got told off because he went into school and was charging people 50p for a squirt of hand sanitizer. And part of me was sort of like, he was 9, and part of me was like, oh, that's not good because it's, we should. But part of me was like, he's 9. Do you know what? It's like, let's create a bit of innovation for people. So we all did it when we were at school, didn't we?
Yeah, 20 years' time, he's going to be sat next to a really aging Peter Jones on Dragon's Den looking for investment from, different things. And good on him.
Exactly.
You can't knock enterprise in the way that people do things. And, as people say a lot, Alison Edgar says, brilliantly, if you've got no sales, you've got no business. It's as simple as that. And I've always lived by the moniker that, if you can sell, you'll never starve. That 9-year-old kid will never starve. So
I love that. I love that. If you can sell, you never starve. And it's such a good. It's such a good point. I did a video on it the other week around. We're both in this space and we know it, and we've done well from the environments that we're in. But I talked to a lot of people. I'm sure you have in the last few weeks. So many people are worried and they're afraid and they're upset about what's happening. And one of the things that in the last 2 weeks is 3 jobs that I've seen come up. Okay, in fact, there's a guy that I know who is a very good friend of mine, and another person that's running another business. Both of them want a salesperson right now. a telephone-based salesperson.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've said, and they're not dealing with what I would call cold leads. They might do a bit of prospecting, but they're going to follow up with warm leads. And I'm thinking, if you've got a skill or ability to sell, or even if you are watching this video and thinking, oh, actually, could I do that? Then actually sales opens up so many doors for people. I'd rather be in sales than I would be in retail or in one of those other areas right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that the thing with when you think about the current climate right now, a lot of people rely heavily on doing stuff where they build a great website and they put together great content, pull this stuff out, and they have a brilliant service that they can offer their clients. But the one thing that's missing is that they themselves can't sell. And then what happens is they wonder why they're not making any money, because basically they pushed a button and expected everything else to come in, and they don't think they have to sell. And a lot of people that start businesses come to me and say, you know, I don't want to come across too salesy. And it's like, well, what's the point? You know, you are selling to feed your family, you're running a business. And in this climate right now, what I'm really excited about, and I put a video up a couple of weeks ago about this, is that this is making everyone talk to each other. And it's making people do video calls. Zoom and things like that have gone up, obviously. But it's also making people pick up the phone. And prior to all this COVID stuff, you know, as tragic as it is, prior to all of that, we saw post after post after post on LinkedIn saying cold calling is dead, picking up the phone is dead, people don't answer their phones. And do you know what? That's complete bullshit. You know, the way that I run my business is through talking to people. You know, if you think, or any salesperson out there thinks that this is a phone, it's not. This is not the way you sell. Sometimes if a customer tells you that's the only way that they will talk to you, well, yes, of course. But in my eyes, and I posted this before, everybody has one of these, and everyone has the free SalesMaker app. It's just here.
Yeah, love it.
The really great thing about the SalesMaker app is when you tap it, it will show you all the people that you can call. It gives you their number, and when you tap it in, they actually talk to you in real time. It's fucking amazing.
It's such a good point. It's a really great point, and it's funny because I share a thing with people called, I say people a lot of the time, you know, you don't email the fire brigade if your house is on fire.
Exactly.
And it's the same thing actually. If you want to make connections with people, you pick up the phone and you speak to people, and it's so right that this time has given us the opportunity to do it, hasn't it?
It has, and I think that, you know, when you look back, you know, we looked at the parodies of things like Jordan Belfort, The Wolf of Wall Street, and that famous quote he said of, you know, see those little black boxes? They're called phones. They won't ring themselves. They make us rich. It's so true. And we have to be calling people and talking to people. And I genuinely believe, and this is a huge generalization, but I do believe it, that the salespeople that will succeed in this climate are the ones who are picking up the phone, are the ones who are able to hold conversations, understand people, and build those great relationships, and go in knowing that what they have to some people adds amazing value. So there was, years ago, there was a book called, I think it was called something like Stop Telling, Start Selling. And we now know that in today's world, customers will ask us, well, if you were in my position, what would you do? Or what would your advice be? Those clients are asking you to tell them what to do. So there's nothing wrong with telling a client what you think you should do, because you've got so much knowledge of your marketplace, of your product space, all of those things, that sometimes we do know what's best for our clients. So
it's a really
talking to them it's so important to talk to people right now and be that collaborative person that's actually in their back pocket.
It's a great comment you make, and I want to come back and talk about education and value, because I think you're right. The best salespeople do that and make their prospects feel enthralled by that. But just before we get into that, you mentioned that, you know, and you and I talked to lots of businesses in the same thing, and we're probably, when someone says to me, you know, what do you do, or you're in sales, people look at you as if say, oh, that's a bit weird, isn't it? Why is it? Because yeah, I love being in sales. I've been in sales for 22 years. I know you love being in.
Yeah.
It is exactly what we do. Why do you think that so many people? And I have an idea on this. I'd be interested to know if it's the same one. Of why do you think so many people don't like it or worry about it or feel it's a bit ugh?
Because it's dirty, isn't it, over here? It's dirty to be in sales because basically you're asking for money. And when we start to think about, what salespeople do a magical thing. We have a gift that no one else has. And that gift is that we have the ability to get people to part with their money. And we do that through understanding our clients and understanding the value that our product brings, and we bring them together. If we look at businesses, they're made up of people, product, and process. If we watch things on television like The Profit, we can see that the guy that runs that show, whose name's gone out of my brain now, but when he said it is about people, product, and process, it was like, oh my God, yes, of course it is. That's exactly what it is. I've been saying this for years. It's about, I have a product, you have a product. You have a process of buying, I have a process of selling, I'm a person, you're a person. And so therefore, if we can join those together, then we might be able to make some magic for each other. And ultimately, everything we sell in some way or another will always go back to either making a client money or saving them time. And time and money are the most important things in business, which we're always told. So whenever I train people to sell, I always try to get them to say, when they're talking to the client, try to bring in the concept of we're doing this to help you make more money. So if I'm teaching someone to sell advertising, good morning, Mr. Customer. My name is Simon Hares. I'm calling you from X publication or X website. I'd love to talk to you today about your website marketing and advertising with a view to seeing if we can help you make more money from that. And when we start to incorporate in conversation, it brings about a difference which is really strong. And when customers hear salespeople say, we're different all the time, when you chase down that rabbit hole, you sometimes find that the salesperson isn't very good at qualifying that difference. They'll say things like, if it's recruitment, they'll say, we filter all CVs, we get onto a PSL, or, we do first screening, anything like that. But the thing is, everybody says that. So in my world, I say to salespeople, don't tell people that you are different, tell them that you are relevant, and explain how you are relevant. And relevance is about excellence and good quality, and it's about bringing those two things together in a timely fashion. I can help you now and over the long term. That's what makes us relevant. And customers seem to respond very well to that. And they seem to like that because they haven't heard it before. No one else is really saying it. And so therefore, they want to talk about that. They want to explore that. And then you're into a conversation. They love it.
It's such a good point, and it's a really good element you made there. And one of the things I always say I think people find sales a bit is because, and I hasten to say, I percentage-wise, I sometimes fluctuate between 75 and 85, but I think 75% of people do sales across the country, if I'm honest, quite badly, in my experience. Yeah. Because what a lot of salespeople do is they focus on themselves, not on the prospect. To that point you just mentioned about relevance, they focus on what's relevant for them, not what's relevant for their prospect, not what's going to make that person money or save them time, and the bits that actually make them go, oh, that's quite interesting. I always say to people, there's either a problem or a want. If you haven't got a problem or a want, you won't get someone to buy into something because they just don't think it's relevant for them, as you say. So, and I think it's because people do it badly that other people then feel it's a bit strange. But yet when people get taught the right way by you or by me or other sales trainers, they realise and actually this sales stuff isn't as bad as they think.
No, and there's the other thing about that people don't like sales is it's dripping in all those stereotypes. But when we look at the psychology behind why people don't like selling, there's some key fundamentals behind it. And when we look at sales core reluctance, things like that, there are 3 principles. When we are kids, we are told as children, don't talk to strangers. Well, if you're told not to talk to strangers and you end up in sales, you ain't going to cold call for shit, because you'll be frightened of being hurt or being rejected. And we know that salespeople hate being rejected. We know that as kids, we are told not to cheek our elders or answer back. So therefore, what we do is we over-respect clients who work in organizations that are bigger than our own, or big companies, or have the word director after their job title. So we over-respect them because they are our elders and betters. So guess what? We won't sell to them either. And the third thing we're taught as kids is never talk about money and never ask how much something costs. Why? Because it's rude and it's vulgar. Well, guess what? Every time I was asked a present or given a present, I would always ask, how much did that cost? Nowadays, what I do is I say, have you still got the receipt? Because you should have stuck to the list. But you know what? I'm not frightened to talk about money, and I don't care about talking about money. And in sales, we often find that some sales training actually tells people not to talk about money or cost until at least 80% of the way through a sales conversation. And this blows my mind, because you have wasted 80% of that time realizing that that client could be not qualified to deal with you, because they've got to be able to afford what you're spending. So therefore, you're likely to come up against the price objection really quickly. So whenever we start to talk to new clients and we talk to clients, it's important to get budget and cost out of the way really quickly. And in fact, in some cases, if you sell something that's quite luxurious or high end, one thing I learned very on from selling luxury was to actually say to some clients, I imagine you're thinking that this particular product is quite expensive. And guess what? You'd be absolutely right. It does require significant investment. Let me give you an example. One area that I worked in was the luxury skincare market. Now, if you think about that, it's an amazing market to work in, because you are selling a dream. You are selling the dream of eternal youth. And when you're on those counters and you're selling what is ostensibly a jar of mayonnaise, it's an oil and water emulsion, you know, you're selling the fountain of youth. Has anyone ever gone back up to a cosmetic counter when they're 75, knocked on the door and gone, excuse me, I've used this for the last 40 years, didn't work, and I have my money back? Never going to happen. But when you're actually selling this stuff and it's like 300 quid a jar, you've got to say to a member of the public who's coming up, a lady perhaps, even a man now, of course, and you say to them, you're probably thinking that this particular product is quite expensive. And you're absolutely right. It does require significant investment. But at the end of the day, you only have one skin. How much money do you spend on clothes every year and you just throw them away? Your skin is with you for life. So isn't it worth investing a little bit more in? Is it any wonder that companies like L'Oreal have come back and said, because you're worth it? Because all the way down the line, of course we're worth it. Because it's about not what it costs, it's about what it's going to do for you. And it's the same with any product you sell, whether it's advertising, whether it's training, whether it's recruitment, whether it's, you know, PPE wear and face masks. It's not what it costs, it's what it's going to do for you. And that's why we have to talk about budget and cost early on. But people that are scared of sales don't have those skills. And sometimes what we've got to do as sales trainers is, first of all, train out of them those values that they were taught as a kid. Let's talk about how easy it is to talk to strangers. So we do about confidence training. Then what we do is we think about how easy is it to talk about budget and money. Well, let's talk about budget and money, and let's make it something we're comfortable with. And how do we talk to people who we perceive to be better than us? And actually, one of the ways that I do that is to always start off by saying, hey, it doesn't matter who they are, we're all the same, goods in, goods out. So that's the starting point. And I think that when you start to think of it in those ways, people's confidence, they start to laugh and they have a good time and they see people differently. In the old days, we used to always say, when you're selling in business, you should always imagine the person naked. And
yeah,
it's
that's
like,
right, yeah. Or on the loo.
And it was like,
loo.
yeah. But now, it's not about imagining people naked. It's about imagining people just as people. They're just like you and I, that just because they've got director after their name doesn't make them any different.
It's it's such a good point. It's that great film. It's that great line in Notting Hill, the film, isn't it? When Julia Roberts comes into Hugh Grant's shop, and you know, I don't know if you've seen it, and she sort of says, "Oh, you know, I might be this movie star and I might be this thing, but all I am deep down is a person that wants to be loved," or whatever it is. And it's the same thing, isn't it? Because, like you say, directors of you know, they are still humans at the end of the day, and I actually say, you know, I always say to people, sell to people that make budgets, not those that have them. Because actually, if you could be in a position where you can sell at the highest level, if you provide the issues are the same for me, and I hope maybe you'd agree with me, is they still have a problem or a want. There's something that's going on that's causing them stress, or that's causing them strain, that's causing them things that are going on in their head, or they've got things they want to achieve. They want to double their revenue. They want to open up a new market, whatever. And if you as a salesperson can make one of those things happen, they're going to talk to you. They're going to basically go and say, I want to talk to you. You might need to show them evidence of it because they're going to be savvy around it and give them belief that you can do it. But if you give them that element of belief and make them, they're going to sign off on it. And you don't have to then go through the budget scales because they've got the budget straight away.
That's it. And it's sometimes you can find that people will say they've got no budget, but actually you can go into a client who genuinely doesn't have any budget and have something that's so good because of the way that you've conveyed it and sold the value that suddenly they'll find budget.
They'll find the money, exactly that.
And that to me I find that to be quite sales magic, because then you get other companies that say, oh my goodness, you managed to get in there. They never had any budget. How did you manage to get it? And you think, well, do you know what? They did. Maybe it was something, the timing was right. And of course you play it down. But when you're on your own, you go back and you look at your toolkit that you have as a salesperson, and you go back through the sale and you say, I did that, and I did that. And as sales trainers, I think it's really important that sometimes we need to qualify this so-called toolkit that we give people, because whilst it is a toolkit and in the training environment, they're picking up all these techniques, they're not going to remember everything there and then to be able to take it all away. They say that people on a training course only remember about 10% immediately. And if you've got 10 people in a room, well, that could be 10 different things. So therefore, we have to really make them physical tools that they can see and really get a conscious grasp of. So if they're going to have an objection, we need to be able to say, right, you've acknowledged the client has got an objection, step off of that process and go into the objection handling process. Once you've got that done, step back into the sales process and pick up that tool. And once you start to make it that easy, it becomes more process focused, where people can walk through it. And I like to see sales as a bit of a sat nav in a way. You plug in where you want to go, the close, get the business, how you get there, and along the pathway is up to you. Get off and have lunch somewhere, go and see the flowers or the town. But then you always have to get back on that main route, that main toolkit to get you where you want to go.
It's such a good, so many great points, and it's always good when I have these conversations with other sales experts that, we all know what we know, but sometimes, and we all learn from each other. I learn from you and other sales experts alongside this, and it's so right. But I say to people, my business is based in Weston-super-Mare, and I say to people that in Somerset. Did you? Well, there you go. Well, it was based in Weston. I say to people, I'd love to get to Paddington in one go, okay, but invariably I have to stop at Bristol, Chippenham, Swindon, Reading, and then London. Your prospects go through the same journey. They have to stop, and this is the challenge that a lot of people face as well, because they say to me, well, do you know what? I'm good at sales. I need to get 10 sales, so I need, I'll probably get 12 or 13 opportunities, and I'll convert them. I'm like, if you think everyone's going to go on that journey with you to London, you're wrong. A lot of people are going to jump off at different stages in the process, and the skill of the very best salespeople, in my experience, is then knowing where they jump off and how they can adjust what they've said, what tools they've used, how they've approached that person in order to think, right, what can I have done differently to bring that person from Chippenham to Swindon, for example, or from Swindon to Reading. So it's such a good point.
Now, I just want to pick up on, you've used the word sales expert quite a lot, and, I'm finding there's quite a lot of pushback at the moment about the word expert, because I think expertise is something that you get through experience and knowledge. And as a salesperson, I think it's really important to say that whilst we've got all these tools that we use, and for anyone that's watching that maybe is new to sales as well, I'm really conscious of this, we still make mistakes. We still get it wrong. We still sometimes walk away from a sale going, oh my God, did I just say that? We still make mistakes. We still lose business to other people. And I think that when we start to do sales training and we listen to people who work in the field of sales, especially when we see stuff that's coming over from America, we can sometimes compare ourselves to what I see as a false perception. And you very rarely see those people saying where they've gone wrong or that they do get it wrong, because it's always this positive, you'll get it right, you can get there, we can do it. But if we're, more realistic about what goes on, then ultimately we can manage expectations a lot more. And if it was as easy as everyone says, well, then everyone would be hitting their targets and everyone would, have a fantastic opinion of sales. But it's not the case. We live in the real world. And so we must acknowledge the fact that we still make mistakes. There are days where everything we touch as salespeople will turn to gold. I don't know why, maybe it's our process, but everything turns to gold. There are other days where you go about things in your regular way and everything you touch turns to shit. It really does. And you come away thinking, oh my God, I am the worst salesperson in the world, where you haven't sold anything for a week and you think, my goodness, my job's on the line or all this, that and the other. And then you think, oh, I'll just pick up the phone and have another go. And you pick up the phone and you sell again. And it's a roller coaster. It just goes up and down and up and down. And we need to acknowledge this as salespeople. And when I train sales teams, I always give them lots of different points of view on things. It's, if you look at my business logo, it's got my face facing in two different directions. And that's because there's always more than one point of view on anything. And I think a lot of sales process generally, there's not really a huge amount of original stuff. I think it's all just recycled, if I'm honest, but it's our take on it. And so whenever I go into sales trainings, I always take in people's books and other people's reading material so that I can say, don't take my word for it. Have a read of what this person says, have a read of what that person says, and I always take in, books that are really current. You can see behind me, tons of books. And I had to sit here doing this interview in front of a bookcase because if you notice on the news at the moment, everyone is being interviewed in front of their bookcase. It's like they're going, how clever I am.
I got a white book. There we go.
They're little sales experts. I've got just bookcase filled with books and elephants. How clever we are. But these are the kind of authors. There's a lot. 2019 was like the year of the sales book. There was so much that was coming out, and there's some amazing stuff that's out at the moment, and we recommend a lot.
It's a really good point, and I say about sales experts, I totally right, and expertise to me, what actually, there's two reasons why I say the term expert though. I think you're 100% right about learning. I say, well, I have a picture up in my office, in my desk in my office around Michelangelo at 87. I'm still learning. So I think the first thing is the very best salespeople always have a hunger to keep learning and learning new things. I read books. There's a great book called Sales Differentiation by a guy called Lee Saltz.
I read it.
And I read it. I was like, yeah, some great, and I took some great points from it. Like you say, there's so many good things from that. But what I do think is important is that actually there is a knowledge that we, and I say to people on a scale of 0 to 10, if 1 is know nothing and 10 being is an expert, I'm certainly not a 10, I'm certainly not a 9, I'm probably not an 8, but I would certainly see myself as a 6 or a 7. And actually, I think my passion, what I want to do is help people that see themselves as a 2 and a 3 move up that scale. And I think it's about, because when they do move up that scale and they see, I had a lady the other week that used one of the responses I used for an objection. And she said, I used it and I got a result. That's what makes me do what I do, is because I was like, yes, get in there, it's worked. And I'm sure you're the same. So.
It's when you get that email or that LinkedIn message says, I use that one tool that you gave me, or you see people in a meeting or a training session and you can see something that you've told them, and it's not just a penny drop, it's like a lead weight has just dropped through the floor. And you watch them and you go, you're definitely going to use that, aren't you? And that's going to work. And then they come back and they tell you and they go, this is how much money I made as a result of what you taught me here. And you just think, that's what we want. Because sales training is never about you as the trainer. In fact, any training, it's never about you. It's always about the other person, and it's always about what you can give them. and keep supporting them with. And that's so important, because
Yeah.
you can get salespeople, and like you, I agree with you. You know, I'm probably only at, you know, maybe a 5 or a 6 even on that scale.
I think you're a 6 and 7, but personally.
Well,
But there we go.
but,
I think what I've already know, what I've heard from you today, there's stuff that you know that I wish I could impart on other people.
well, you look at stuff and we learn from each other, don't we? And it's nice that we can do that and we can
That's
talk
right.
to each other. But even if we just learn 0.1 of a 1 point, that's something that we can take away. And even if we change it, well, it's made us rethink the way we do things, and that's important. You know, it's that kind of model that we have. It's the military model, isn't it? It's adapt, improve, and overcome.
Yeah,
That's what we want.
it is. It's a great point, and there's a you know, again, because we get access to books and learnings and, you know, human psychology all the time. It makes a difference. I'm just going through. I haven't gone through many of my questions on the list, which is great because the conversation's flowing.
No,
but no, it's fine, because look, this is all about, you know. But talk to me about some of the biggest mistakes you see people making when people are on your courses, whether it's in business or whether they're working for someone or have their own business. What do you think? What are the sort of top 2 or 3 mistakes they make with regard to sales, you think, Simon?
I think there's, number one, there's a reluctance to learn to sell. I think that's a mistake for a start. And there's some people who are quite reticent. They don't want to be labelled as salesy, so they come in with that kind of assumption that they want to be something else. So you say to them, if you were going out for dinner, what would you say you do as a job? And they'd say, oh, I work in marketing, or I work in promotions. I know you don't, you work in sales. So I think there's that reticence.
Yeah.
Of that. I think there's also a mistake where they rely too heavily on product training, and they mistake product training for sales training. And, you know, especially within retail, where they're given products which come in all the time, and they're given all the technical spec and the features and the benefits, but they're not given the skills in questioning, they're not given the skills in closing to actually find out as much as they can before they start talking about themselves. So I think there's a whole reliance on product training, which means sometimes they end up selling what they think the client wants rather than what the client actually needs. And you sometimes find somebody will go in, when I do retail sales, you'll say to people, they'll say, you know, a client will come in wanting one product, we'll end up selling them something else. Well, the thing is, the client's still leaving that shop wanting what they came in for, and they're going to leave your shop going to your competitor to get it. So give the client what they want rather than something that's better. So that product training, I think, sometimes creates a bit of a mistake. And I think those are kind of the 2 things that I've noticed: the reliance on product training and the resistance to being in sales generally, I suppose.
Yeah, or like you say, people worry about, you know, rejection is something they think it's personal, or they think it's someone having a go at them, or they feel like it's someone really out to them, and it's not. But I think you're right about the product knowledge. A lot of people think that,
yeah,
you know, you sit
though, James, because you know what, when you get a client, if you are somebody that's just getting into sales for the first time, we think that we say to them with all good intention, don't we? You know, they're going to reject you. You're going to get these things we call objections. You've got to deal with gatekeepers. We paint all of these dark pictures in sales training. And then these lovely young people, or lovely new people, or lovely anybody goes in and starts selling. They get their first kickback from a client. And whilst it is business, it's not personal. It bloody well feels personal the first time it happens to you. So therefore, you do get knocked back, and you do take it personally, because you think, I only rang them up to see if I could help them, and they were really rude to me. But we don't teach people that basically to anticipate what a customer could be feeling by reading in between what they're saying a little bit more, maybe listening to the tone of their voice, to be able to predict their behavior. And that's why customer profiling is so important to use, so that you can understand their behaviors. But whilst people say it's not personal, it feels personal when it happens. And when you get people, especially because you do tend to get graduates who come into sales at that younger age, they can get battered really quickly. And it is those that are more resilient that will get through. But it's easy for us as salespeople who have got years of experience to say it's not personal. But that person at the other end, it does feel personal, and you know that they go home and worry, and it stops them from calling the next day.
It's a really good point, and I picked myself up on it, and I think you're so right actually that I said that what I've said based upon I've just noticed a bit of jittery with the connections. So hopefully we're okay. I think the Americas are coming online at 2 o'clock. I probably should have done this in the morning, but it's really it's the point, like you say, is that we're used to it. I'm used to it, so we're used to dealing with it. But you're right, people. It is a mental thing to be able to accept it, and it's training your brain to accept that it's not a bad thing. Actually, I always coach a lot of people I say and say, actually look out for a no. I've even had, the no board on the list, and the first one to get to 20 no's get something for it, because actually it's actually, we're used to it. We know in sales it's a roller coaster. We're going to go through the shit times, but we're going to get, when you get the good times, that's going to make it up for all of the bad times. But you're right, it's
no's to get to a yes, something like that. The average client says no to you 7 times or something.
That's right.
And you just think, well, that's fine. You said no to me once, I'll call you again. It's it's fine.
But it's a really, really good point actually, and we've just got to make sure, like you say, we're hardened to it, but maybe others that are new to it, it's a challenge for them. But just talk about sales influences on your life. So who's influenced you from a sales perspective over the course of the last 10, 15 years? Who's I know you've got a lot of books there, but anyone in particular that's influenced you?
The biggest influence on sales for me from an early age was Robert Cialdini. And he did some stuff for us, and when I bought the book, and this is the original copy of the book, and as you can see, it's very well loved. The rules of influence that he's put out were so good, and when you read about reciprocation and social proof and the liking theory and scarcity, it's so obvious, but when you use it as a conscious tool, the person you're using it on doesn't know you're using it, so therefore it's fine. And when you start to see the incorporation of those rules of influence, perhaps within closing techniques, it's just magic. So that book and his rules of influence really, really played a big, big role on me as a salesperson when I was younger. But even now, people are influencing me in the way I sell. And you look at different things that are out there. Keenan, for example, with his book at the moment, Gap Selling, the whole gap selling matrix that he's got, the whole kind of, what are the facts, what's the problems, what are the root causes, what's the impact, and what's the emotional state of the client. Well, that's a whole fantastic way of discovering things about the client. And then if you fit them into that little matrix, it's a good way to confirm back and show what you've learned to prove that you've listened to the client. And not only that, that matrix can actually work across management and appraisals or one-to-ones. It's a fantastic way to work, and that's had a huge influence. When you look at people like Patrick Tinney, who is a Canadian salesperson who is really big in negotiation. He's amazing at what he knows about negotiation. And when we start to think about stuff that is a real revolution at the moment, we're going back to this compassionate way of selling. And in this climate, all we're seeing is empathy, love, and warmth. Even before all this came out, Larry Levine with his book, Selling from the Heart. I mean, seriously, it's one of those books that I recommend for everybody on any training course, as well as, any of the others that are there. But those people have an influence on me now as a man of 52 who's been selling for, 30 odd years. And you look at it and you think, well, if they're still influencing now, that doesn't mean you have to stop learning. You still have to keep going. And I think it's Larry Levine who said that salespeople today have convinced themselves that what they're not doing doesn't work. And it's an interesting thing that he's saying, because people think, well, I'm not doing that because it doesn't work. Well, that's with that one customer, but maybe if you try it with another 9 customers, it would. And we have to be influenced to do things in different ways. And as I said, Robert Cialdini, big time, but it's the people nowadays that are very relevant, making lots of... Brilliant.
It's a very good point, and I'm one of these people that I'm rightly or wrongly writing a book at the moment around sales and what I've learned over the time. And one of the things that I talk to people a lot about is, the concept called emotional sales intelligence, which is Daniel Goleman's emotional intelligence, but put into a sales environment. You know, your ability to self-control, your ability to have self-awareness, your ability to empathy is a real, you know, key element in good salespeople. And you know, when I present at workshops and groups who I'm mentors for, people have this concept of selling being about gift of the gab and all these great people being able to shout and talk and things. And I was, you know, I say to them, sales is about listening. It's about engaging the right questions. It's about thinking like that person. I'm thinking like Simon is right now. What's he going through? What's he thinking through? What's going on in his world right now? What could be happening in his world? And putting yourself in their shoes. And when you start to think of sales in that way, which is very driven from the other side, like you've said, not from what you want as a salesperson, results start to happen. So.
Well, that's it. And you know, I wrote a blog years ago that said to salespeople, stop thinking about your targets, because if you can think about the ways that you can help make your clients money, then they will help make you money without even thinking about it.
Yeah, it's a great point.
It's about changing your mindset and thinking like a buyer, which I was taught years ago. And it is about thinking about that other person. So, you know, we can learn a lot from lots of people. I'm excited that you've got a book coming out as well.
Yeah, well, it's been, you'll ask, it's a guy called Alexander Siri who I mentor for his program, and he's been nagging me for ages to get a book out. So I've actually titled it at the moment. It may change, but the title at the moment officially is How to Be Effing Brilliant at Selling. Because I just think it's one of those things where people think they think there's a dark art to selling. And I don't know if you've seen, I have a model around how sales is like dating. It's like a 12-stage model I use, and I take people through. And I say to them, it's exactly the same thing. You know, if you go on a date with someone, or when you're dating with someone, and all they did is talk about themselves for the first part of the conversation, you probably wouldn't want to go on a date with them again. So why think it's acceptable with sales? So it's trying to make it in a way that people can go, I can relate to that. And that's, again, like you say, it's demystifying it as well. It's making people feel that it's not this difficult thing they have to do, but it is, like you say, it's helping. It's, you know, I want to pick up one thing you talk about education and value. And I talk to people a lot about, you know, show sales value before you show sales vanity. So, you know, don't be who, you know, you're this great thing and you're this wonderful and amazing person. Give them value, give them that reciprocal element, give them, you know, a guide, a blog, or something that makes them think, wow, that was helpful, that was useful. And I'm guessing from what you said earlier on, you encourage the people you train to approach it in the same way.
It is, and it is about the value. I remember watching Mark Hunter do some stuff when he was presenting at Outbound last year, I think it was, and he said that when you are...
Are you going to Outbound, by the way?
Well, not this year, obviously, but...
It's in August now, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. I don't think anything will be happening.
No, I'm not sure, maybe not.
No, but when he was talking about this concept of a customer not liking the price of what he was doing, and he said, I didn't change the price, I just changed the value, and I still will grow things. And if you can change the value of what you're doing in terms of everything you can do for the client except move the price, then you can actually do quite a lot. So it is about delivering that value before, you know, the price, because everything you do will make that price seem so much smaller. And there's an exercise you can do, isn't there, where you take an item, any old household item, and you say, let's just say, for example, it's this candlestick. And you take the candlestick and you say, if I go and buy that candlestick in exactly the same format in Selfridges in London, or if I buy it in John Lewis, and then I buy it in Debenhams, and then I buy it in Asda, can you please write down how much it's going to cost in each of those 4 shops? And when you do that with a group, every single person within that group, if you start from Selfridges and go down to Asda, will have a decreasing balance on how much that candlestick costs. So then what you do is you just say to them, why is it that the price is so much higher for exactly the same product? And that's where they start to talk about this thing called the economic value equation, which is price underneath everything else that makes a price worth paying. And if you work in the premium market, then that top end over the price is going to be absolutely loaded with value, which convinces someone to pay that Selfridges premium. Well, it's the same in any product where you're with a product or service where you're asking someone to pay a premium, but you can't just say it's going to cost this and that's it. You've got to deliver the value. Value first, then the price will come. Put my candlestick down.
Yeah, it's a good point. And also, like you say, it's about this. You know, that I always say to people, people buy emotionally, not with their head. They buy with their heart. And if you can, you know, like you say, you know, why does a candlestick in Selfridges, you know, cost any more than one in Asda? It's because of the surroundings they put around. They get people to picture that romantic meal and the candles being in place and it all go in this fantastic environment, and then say, what's the price that you can put on an amazing night? And everyone goes, oh, you're right, I need to buy one of those things, and it's £25 more than they would have done at Asda. So
Well, it's
they
funny.
picture it, they sell emotionally, don't they? So.
That's it. But it's funny because when we start to think about those 4 shops and we put them in order, if you take the last one I mentioned, which is Asda, one of my delegates very rightly said to me, but what happens if Asda, in the client's mind, is the equivalent of Selfridges? What happens if what you're saying is the cheapest is actually their perception of the best? He said, because somewhere down the line, Asda will be seen as high quality and premium to some people. And you think, oh my God.
Depends on your target market, doesn't it? And it goes back to one of the other things that I talked to, you know, think is really...
Yeah, because they think that they're never going to be able to shop in Selfridges. Some people think they're never going to be able to shop in John Lewis or Debenhams. It's the perception of value and what it delivers. So there's some brilliant stuff out there on value. Yeah. I think, you know, some of the best stuff you get is some of the things you get back from the delegates that we train, because they're right on the coalface with us and they're giving that real experience. Comfy? You look like you were fidgeting there. Can you hear me?
No, I'm not. I'm dealing at the moment. You're hearing me, but I'm hearing bits of you coming through. So I'm slightly worried that the connection is affecting in the quality. But
I can hear you perfectly.
Well, hopefully then the recorded, it's fine. It doesn't matter whether it's more of I'm hearing like the odd word coming in and out. So whether it's hopefully it should be fine. So be all good. But just really love to, you know, to go through. What do you know? Talk to me. You talked about closing and objections. And one of the things I've got a session I'm doing with some people tomorrow, and people say to me, "Oh, you know, teach me how to close. Teach me how to, you know, to make it happen." And people always, I think, sometimes want that silver bullet, don't they? That they're going to be able to get some words that they could use that suddenly is going to guarantee. And certainly, but closing is a natural process in a sales process when you go through it the right way. But any tips that you've got that you wanted to share relating to closing and handling objections, which I know a lot of other, you know, businesses find a challenge.
I think when it comes to closing, we have to. There's 3 closes that we tend to lean on more than any other. There's the test close. So how does that sound to you? There's the alternative close. Would you like this or would you like that? And then there's the direct close, which is, so shall we go ahead and do it? And then when you think about the logical order of a conversation, you can actually do the test close all the way through it. And in fact, people do it all the time. So do you understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Can I go on? Are you okay with that? If you do that all the way through a conversation, it will lead you up to, so which side do you think you like the best? It sounds like you like this one, but we could also do that. Which one sounds best? And then once they've chosen one, you can then go, so should we start thinking about the next steps with that one, or shall we go ahead and book that? So when you follow the 3 very gentle, curved way of closing, it's a nice thing that we can do. And I like that very much. So I tend to get people who are new to sales or losing their confidence or their mojo a little bit to go through that test, alternative, and direct. If you've got people who want something that's a bit more long-term for long-term selling, then what I do is I do something called the time travel close, or the reverse close, which is usually around things that are a long way in advance. So a customer might say to somebody, I'm looking, for example, let's just say they're looking to get a new bathroom fitted. And the salesperson would say to them, so when are you looking to get your bathroom in place? And they'll say, well, we're looking to have it in by about Christmas, because everything's in for Christmas. And then they say, okay, so you're looking for it to be in for Christmas. That's great. So just looking at where we are right now, if we have your bathroom fitted on the week of the 1st of December, so it's in time for Christmas, and then we work backwards, we've got to get the stock installed for you and in stock. So that's probably going to take 3 weeks before then to get that done. We've then got to get the design signed off as to what that bathroom's going to look like. So we've got to do that. We've also got to do a home visit. and that home visit needs us to come out to check the floors are right and the walls are right and what have you. Then we've got to present the design to you, and that's going to take some time as well. And of course, you've got to choose what you'd like in your bathroom and what you'd like it to look like. And of course, that can take a couple of weeks for you to get round. So based on the fact that if you were to choose us as the person who's looking to fit your and install your bathroom, we would be looking for a Christmas installation for you to sign off on your deposit within the next 5 days. And what you're doing there is you're taking the client backwards from when they want it put in all the way through the process of getting them to their goal and then closing them so that they understand the process. So I just used the example of that as a bathroom, but you could use that if you were having a new piece of software, management software that was being put into your business and you were launching that. If you were looking to sell website design and how that was going to work, you can do it there. Anything that's project based. So when we start to think about different types of closes, what I've given you there is you've given you 3 really simple ones that you can use, or one which is more for a long-term sale, or even for someone who's looking for a long series of sales from the same client.
I love that process one. It's a really, really great way of depicting it. And it's funny, I had a client that I said to them, tell people how you go about delivering what you do. Because I always talk to people about there's a belief gap between where they are now and where they want to be. And they want to be in that promised land that you're offering them, but they've got to come across that gap. And the reality is, like you say, you mentioned it because you're talking through how you're going to deliver. And one of the things that most people want to know is, if I do say yes, how is it going to happen? How are you going to make it real for me? How are you going to bring it to life? Because you've given me this promised land, and now, so I think that's a really great way of doing it. I really love that.
It's a nice technique, and it just allows you to manage the client's expectations. So it tells them what you're doing for them all along the way. It stops them thinking, oh, well, you're just going to take the money and run away.
Yeah,
so,
no, I love that. I love that. Great idea. And in terms of objections,
mind, James.
Sorry,
you credit me in your book.
Oh, I shall be crediting you for all of this. Don't you worry. I'll be crediting you for all of this, but it's fine. And in terms of objections, how, when any great objection responses you've used when people say, obviously the standard ones, they're too busy or price is too high. Any great quips or responses you've used there that you teach your clients?
When people have said to me that they'll say that they have got X amount of budget for training, for example, and I'll say, oh, that's interesting that you've got that budget, but I don't remember giving you permission to cost up my services. Or they'll say, well, actually, we're looking to, your cost is this, but we're looking to pay, let's say, 50% of what you're paying. And I'll say, okay, so which half of the training will you be delivering? And then the best one for me is when people say to me, during a discovery phase, they'll say, the problem we've got with our salespeople right now is that they're discounting too much, and we need to stop them from discounting their prices, and they need to get a better margin. And you go, yeah, that's absolutely fine, we can do that. So then you go through everything and they sign everything off and they love it. And then when you start to give them the costs, or you talk about costs, they then turn around and say, oh, that's far too expensive, we'd be looking for a bit of a discount on that. And you say, oh, hang on a minute. So you're wanting me as a trainer to give you a discount, but to train your teams not to discount. So why would you employ a trainer to do the very thing that you want your staff not to do? Why are you doing that? Because that's like, do as I say, not as I do, or the other way around, whichever it is. And it's amazing when people do that, because sometimes in objection handling, we're trained to be very polite and almost subservient and take a back foot on things and be, that kind of, oh, I'm sorry, let's just do this, or let's make it my fault. And it's not your fault. Sometimes you've got to hold your value. I didn't give you permission to price up my services. I'm not going to give you something for half of that. And if you can find someone who's going to do it, go find them. But I'll tell you what, they'll be shit. So if you want good value, it's going to cost, because it's not what it's going to cost, it's what it's going to do for you.
Exactly. It's such a good point, and it's a great, again, a thing that we know that, I said prospects to your people that you work with are like an animal. If you go up to a dog and are tentative with a dog and are a bit uncertain of the animal or a bit unsure of it, and you're a bit, oh, it'll bite, it'll react to you. Whereas if you go up to a prospect and say, sorry, that's just the way I am, that's the price that we've got, and I'm surprised that you find that that's expensive, you know, or really, you think that's expensive? You know, compared to what? What did you think? You know, what did you think I was going to offer it at that price? Then, you know, you, with that, you know, as I always say, it's a level playing field. It isn't one being higher than the other. Then actually, I think you also get a lot more respect as a salesperson. Find you do it in the right way with the right tone, as we all know, because people then start to think, you know, right, they're not going to back down at something. They're showing their value and who they are, and they're prepared to stand behind it, which I think is
because you're not going to walk into. You're not going to walk into.
I like, really good ideas there. You've got so many good things that you offer, Simon. So how can people find out about your training and your courses as we come to the end of this? Then when they're backing up and back up and running, how do you provide? If people want to get in contact with you, how can they get in contact with you? So, I can put some links in as well.
Yeah, great. They can get in contact with me through the website serialtrainer7.com. They can email me, simon@serialtrainer7.com, and connect with me on LinkedIn, either through the Serial Trainer 7 page or through me, Simon Hares.
Fantastic. Look, well, it's
build everything out.
It's been an absolute pleasure for me to spend some time with you and going through this. And this time's flown by. We've had an hour of time and we haven't even gone through 10 of my questions, but that's fine. It's been good. A question, actually, one thing I do want to ask you. So, we shall. Well, what we'll do is we'll do part 2 in the car, because what I do want to do, if you see my sales conversations and sales experts, I love chat, and I love the idea of just driving around and people sharing their thoughts around that. So I'm going to save some of my questions then, but before I do that, I'm going to ask you the other one I do. If you're a superhero, Simon, what would you be and why?
I wouldn't be a superhero. I've always sided with the villains. So I would always be the super villain, and my villain of choice would always be the Riddler from Batman.
There we go then. Okay, fine.
Because the Riddler had a way with words and had a way with, you know, creating psychological maelstroms of all sorts of things that used to tie Batman in knots. And that ability to be able to use language and riddles, and that kind of resonates quite well with me. I quite like that. So
I like it.
I'm afraid it's always with the villain. I've never been one for a blue cape and big red pants.
Brilliant. What a brilliant way to end. Look, Simon, absolute pleasure to have some time with you and go through things. You're an absolute genius in terms of your knowledge and your training. I'm tempted to even book on one myself, because it's just enthralling and engaging. So I absolutely loved it. So look, and thank you for your time and giving up your time this afternoon. I hope I'm going to double check that my internet connection here hasn't caused any problems with the connection, with the quality of production. If it is, then we'll look to do something else, because it's so many insights that you've got that I think would be incredibly valuable, and to share those has been fantastic. So thank you.
My pleasure. It's been great seeing you.
Brilliant stuff. Well, look, what I'll do, as I say, if you've enjoyed listening to Simon and you're a sales expert and you think you'd like to, or certainly someone, but not an expert, maybe someone that knows a bit more about sales than maybe other people do, and want to, more importantly, like Simon, want to share your expertise and your knowledge and your insights and the passion you have for selling, then let's get on a conversation, and we'll make sure that we can share that as well. So look, thanks very much everyone for watching the video. Thank you, Simon. Simon, enjoy. We're not a million miles away. We've both got the sun. I think you're in Bath area. Is that right?
Yeah,
Are you Bath? Yeah. Well, I'm in Somerset, so we're in the southwest is bulking in some sunshine. So maybe it's time to go outside and have a glass of something nice in the outside.
Sounds good.
Great stuff, Simon. Thank you ever so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and look forward to sharing some other thoughts and getting you in that car for some sales conversations really soon.
Great stuff. We'll do a chord and song as well.
I like it. Take care, Simon. Cheers now. Bye-bye.
Bye.